All right, let's talk about The Courage to be Disliked. This is a book that might just flip everything you believe about life, happiness, and your own past completely upside down. We're going to get into some of its most powerful and maybe a little controversial ideas from Adlerian psychology. So, the book kicks off with this really wild premise. It says the world, in its essence, is incredibly simple. It's us, you and me, who make it feel like a chaotic mess. Why? Because we're constantly looking at it through these distorted lenses of our past baggage and all our anxieties about the future. And at the heart of the book is this epic showdown between two ways of thinking. You've got Freud, who says your past is basically your destiny. And then you have Alfred Adler, who comes along and says, nope, you choose your purpose in this very moment. So let's see how Adler's philosophy can actually set us free by busting three huge myths we all tend to believe. All right, first up, let's tackle a big one. It's this deep-seated belief that our past has an unbreakable grip on our present. You know how it goes, right? We tell ourselves these stories. I'm this way because of what happened to me. I can't do that because of my upbringing. We see ourselves as the end result of our experiences. But Adlerian psychology says, hold on a second. Let's look at this from a completely different angle. The traditional way of thinking, the Freudian way, is all about etiology. That's just a fancy word for cause and effect. It's like being a detective, always digging into the past to find that one single reason, that why, that explains all our problems today. But here's where things get really interesting. Adler's idea of teleology flips that whole thing on its head. It's not about the cause, it's about the goal. So instead of saying, I can't go outside because of my past trauma, Adler would ask, what goal am I trying to achieve right now? And maybe, just maybe, the goal is to avoid dealing with people. And the past trauma, that becomes a very convenient justification to stay inside. Now, I know that sounds kind of harsh, right? Adler isn't saying bad things don't happen. Of course they do. What he's saying is that those events, in themselves, don't determine our future. We are the ones who assign meaning to them. And if we have the power to assign a meaning, we also have the power to choose a new one. Right now. All right, so if our past doesn't control us, what about our emotions? That brings us right to myth number 2, the idea that feelings are these rogue forces that hijack our brains. You know the scene. Something happens, you blow up, and then you say, sorry, I just saw red, or my anger got the best of me. We talk about emotions like they're in the driver's seat, but what if that's just an excuse? See, Adler would argue that anger isn't some spontaneous combustion. It's a tool. You fabricate it to achieve a goal. In that coffee spill scenario, what's the goal? To make the waiters submit? To get them to take you seriously? Fast. And you know what? Shouting is a pretty darn effective tool for that. And that's the whole point, isn't it? You always have a choice. You are not just a puppet being yanked around by your feelings. You're the one pulling the strings. You can choose to use anger as a weapon, or you can choose to respond with grace. The power is yours. This brings us to our third and maybe the most important myth of all, the idea that life is just one big, stressful competition and all our problems are because of it. This is one of Adler's most mind-blowing ideas. Seriously, think about this for a second. If you were the only living being in the entire universe, would you have any problems? No jealousy, no anxiety, no need to impress anyone. Our struggles, he says, only pop up when other people enter the picture. Because as soon as you start seeing other people as rivals to beat or benchmarks to measure up to, your whole life turns into this never-ending race. And in that kind of race, there are no real winners, just a lot of exhausted, unhappy runners. A lot of this comes from what we call an inferiority complex. But, and this is really important, feeling inferior isn't automatically a bad thing. In fact, it can be a good thing. It all comes down to who you're comparing yourself to. If you're constantly measuring yourself against other people, that's a recipe for jealousy and misery. But if you compare yourself to your ideal self, to the person you were yesterday, well, that's what sparks growth. That's how you get better. Okay, so we've busted these huge myths about our past, our emotions, and our relationships. So what now? How do we actually find this freedom he's talking about? Well, luckily, Adler gives us a pretty clear roadmap. It's basically a 3-step process. Sounds simple, but trust me, each one of these is a total game changer. Let's walk through them. Okay, first, separate your tasks. This one is huge. You have to figure out what's your business and what's someone else's. Whether someone likes you or not, that's their task. It's not your job to manage their feelings. Your job is to live your life. Next, stop seeing people as enemies and start seeing them as comrades, fellow travelers on the same crazy journey. And finally, find your value not in what people think of you, but in what you give back to others. And this is what it's all about. It's not a ladder where some people are above and some are below. It's a horizontal plane. We're all equal, just different. We all have something unique to offer, and that's where real worth comes from. When you can do all that, when you stop living your life to get likes and avoid dislikes, you find the ultimate freedom. The courage to be disliked is really just the courage to be yourself, without apology. And let's be clear, this isn't a free pass to be a jerk. It's actually the opposite. It's about building relationships that are based on real respect, not on trying to control each other with drama. The best connections don't trap you, they set you free. So I'll leave you with this. This is the big question the book wants you to ask yourself. If you truly stopped being afraid of what other people think, what would you do? What would you create? Who would you become? That, right there, is the beginning of absolute freedom.